In the cramped office of Heidelberg University's philosophy department, Professor Emma Reinhardt pushed her glasses up her nose as she examined the yellowed pages before her. The manuscript had been discovered in a forgotten archive, tucked between volumes of philosophical treatises. Her heart raced as she recognized Arthur Schopenhauer's distinctive handwriting, spidery, urgent, and unmistakable. "This can't be real," she whispered to herself, running her finger along the aged paper. The manuscript appeared to be Schopenhauer's unpublished notes on women, far more extreme than his already controversial published views. If authentic, it would rewrite scholarly understanding of the 19th century philosopher's misogyny. Emma's department head, Professor Klaus Weber, leaned against the doorframe, his expression tense. "The board wants this kept quiet until authentication is complete." "Why?" Emma challenged. "Academic discovery shouldn't be suppressed." Klaus's eyes narrowed. "Because, Dr. Reinhardt, some truths are better left buried, especially in today's climate." As he walked away, Emma carefully photographed each page, unable to shake the feeling that these documents might disappear as mysteriously as they had appeared. Emma's apartment was a sanctuary of books and silence. Tonight, however, it felt more like a prison as she paced between her desk and window, debating her next move. The manuscript's authentication would take weeks, but her preliminary analysis suggested legitimacy. The handwriting, the paper's age, the philosophical terminology, all consistent with Schopenhauer's known works. Her phone buzzed with a message from her colleague and friend, Michael Chen. "Coffee tomorrow? Need to discuss the manuscript," Emma typed back. "My place, 10 a.m. Bring your expertise and discretion." She turned back to her translations. The passages made her stomach turn. Schopenhauer's published views on women were already notoriously misogynistic, but these private writings ventured into far darker territory, revealing a pathological hatred that went beyond philosophical positioning. As a female scholar dedicated to philosophical truth, Emma faced a dilemma. Reveal findings that would further tarnish women's historical treatment in philosophy, or participate in academic censorship. She poured herself a glass of wine and continued working, translating the German text with meticulous care, each word adding to the weight on her shoulders. Michael arrived precisely at 10, carrying pastries and concern on his face. As Emma's former graduate advisor and mentor, he knew her stubborn commitment to truth. "You look terrible," he noted, setting down coffee on her cluttered table. "I haven't slept," Emma admitted. "The manuscript, it's worse than I initially thought." Michael examined her translations. His expression darkened. If authentic, this would be academically significant. But publishing this would what? Damage Schopenhauer's reputation. He's already known for his misogyny. "It's not Schopenhauer I'm worried about," Michael said softly. "It's the ammunition this provides to those who already want to exclude women from philosophical discourse." Emma's phone chimed with an email. Notification. Professor Weber requested an immediate meeting with the university president regarding the manuscript. "They're moving quickly to contain this," she murmured. Michael placed a hand on her shoulder. "Before you fight this battle, you should know what happened to Elizabeth Förster." Nietzsche's sister? The one who distorted his work? No. Elizabeth. Förster of our department, 1973. She discovered similar documents about Kant. Her career ended when she insisted on publishing. Emma's resolution faltered. "You're saying I should stay silent?" "I'm saying choose your battles carefully. History has never been kind to women who challenge powerful men, even dead ones." The university president's office exuded old-world authority, leather-bound books, mahogany furniture, and portraits of former administrators watching from gilded frames. President Hoffman steepled his fingers. "Dr. Reinhardt, I understand you've made a significant discovery." Emma sat straight-backed in her chair. "Yes, sir. a previously unknown manuscript in Schopenhauer's hand, containing his private thoughts on women. And the authentication? Preliminary. Evidence suggests it's genuine, but formal verification is ongoing. Klaus Weber cleared his throat. The university's position is that such sensitive materials require extensive validation before any public acknowledgement. With respect, Emma countered, this manuscript represents a significant historical document. It deserves proper academic examination. President Hoffman smiled thinly. And it shall have it, Dr. Reinhardt, under proper protocols. Meanwhile, I must insist on complete confidentiality. As the meeting concluded, Emma noticed a text from Michael. Daniel Fisher from Oxford called. He's heard rumors. Word is spreading. Outside the administration building, she nearly collided with Thomas Müller, a senior professor known for his conservative views. Dr. Reinhardt, he said with a predatory smile. I hear you found something interesting. Perhaps we should collaborate. I have contacts at several journals. Emma felt a chill. The manuscript was becoming a political battleground before it had even been properly studied. Rain tapped against Emma's windows as she finalized her translation of the first section of Schopenhauer's manuscript. The philosopher's words grew increasingly disturbing, revealing not just philosophical misogyny, but deeply personal animosity. Her phone rang. Her sister, Sarah. How's the academic world treating you? Sarah asked cheerfully. Emma hesitated. Complicated. I've found something troubling. Your tone worries me. What is it? A manuscript that shows how deeply hatred for women is embedded in our philosophical tradition. Sarah, a lawyer specializing in gender discrimination cases, understood immediately. And now you're caught between truth and consequences. Exactly. If I publish, I risk fueling misogynistic rhetoric. If I don't, I'm participating in historical erasure. What does your gut tell you? Emma glanced at her translation. That truth matters, even when it's ugly, especially then. After hanging up, Emma returned to her work, translating passages where Schopenhauer described women as intellectually incapable of abstract thought, morally inferior, and existing primarily for male convenience, ideas echoed in corners of society even today. Her doorbell rang. Through the peephole, she saw Klaus Weber looking agitated. Dr. Reinhardt, we need to talk. Someone has leaked information about the manuscript to social media. The university is receiving inquiries from the press. By morning, Bechters Schopenhauer's Women was trending. Commentators across the political spectrum had seized the story, most without having seen a single word of the actual manuscript. Emma scrolled through her phone in disbelief. Liberal professors hiding Schopenhauer's truth bombs about women. University suppressing evidence of philosophy's misogynistic foundations. Female professor discovers proof that women were never meant to be philosophers. The philosophy department called an emergency meeting. Emma arrived to find her colleagues divided, some arguing for immediate publication to control the narrative, others for containment. Professor Müller spoke first. The manuscript clearly supports the historical division between male and female intellectual capacities. You haven't even read it, Emma interrupted. Neither have the thousands discussing it online, Klaus countered. Which is why we must issue a statement immediately. Emma's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. We have your translation. Prepare for publication tomorrow. Thanks for your contribution to truth. Her blood ran cold. Someone had accessed her computer files. As the meeting descended into argument, Emma slipped out and called Michael. My translation's been stolen. Someone's publishing it tomorrow. Which version? Michael asked, alarmed. The rough draft without context or commentary. Emma's voice shook. Without explanation, it's just ammunition for misogynists. Come to my office. We need to get ahead of this. Michael's office resembled an academic tornado zone. Books stacked in precarious towers, papers covering every surface. He was typing furiously when Emma arrived. "I'm preparing a contextual framework," he explained. "If they're publishing your translation, we need to frame it properly." Emma sank into a chair. "How did they get my files?" "University systems aren't as secure as they should be, but that's not important now." Michael turned his screen toward her. "What matters is establishing historical context before the manuscript becomes a weapon." Together they worked through the night, creating a companion piece that situated Schopenhauer's views within 19th century gender politics, explained his personal failures with women, and analyzed how his misogyny influenced and was rejected by later philosophers. By dawn, they had composed a comprehensive academic framework. Emma published it on her academic website just as the first news stories broke, featuring fragments of her stolen translation. Her phone rang. "Daniel Fisher from Oxford. Dr. Reinhardt, I see you've responded to the leak. Impressive work." "You've seen the manuscript?" Emma asked. "No, but I've studied Schopenhauer extensively. These views aren't surprising, just more extreme than his published work." He paused. "The academic community is rallying behind your contextual analysis. The historical significance can't be denied, but neither can the danger of these ideas without proper framing." Emma felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps truth could prevail without enabling hatred. 3 days later, Emma found herself in a television studio, facing a hostile interviewer. "Dr. Reinhardt, you've unleashed a philosophical time bomb. Schopenhauer's views confirm what many have long suspected about women's place in intellectual history. How do you respond?" Emma maintained her composure. "Schopenhauer's misogyny was already well documented. This manuscript merely reveals the extent of his personal prejudice, not any philosophical truth about women." "But surely these foundational thinkers were products of their time," Emma interrupted, "and many were wrong about fundamental aspects of humanity. We study them not because they were infallible, but because wrestling with their ideas, both profound and profoundly flawed, helps us progress." After the interview, Emma checked her email to find hundreds of messages, some supportive, many threatening. The university had assigned security to escort her on campus. Michael waited outside the studio. "You did well, but the situation is escalating. The authentication team has received threats demanding they declare the manuscript a forgery." "Is it possible?" Emma asked. "Could it be fake?" "Initial tests confirm the paper and ink are period appropriate, but there's something else." Michael handed her his tablet. "Chemical analysis shows trace elements consistent with preserved documents from Schopenhauer's private collection, specifically items he willed to his disciple Friedrich Becker." Emma's academic instincts quickened. "Becker? I thought his collection was destroyed during World War II. So did everyone else. The National Archives in Berlin maintained a special collection of salvaged documents from the war." Emma and Michael spent 3 days examining fragmentary records of Friedrich Becker's collection. "Look at this," Michael called from across the reading room. "Inventory records from 1938. Becker's daughter apparently sold portions of the collection before the bombing." Emma examined the faded document. "To Professor Hans Müller." She looked up sharply. "Any relation to Thomas Müller?" "His grandfather." The puzzle pieces were shifting. So, Thomas Müller's family potentially possessed authentic Schopenhauer manuscripts, and now one mysteriously appears in our archives. Michael lowered his voice. "It gets more interesting. Hans Müller was removed from his university position after the war for his Nazi affiliations. His papers were confiscated, then gradually returned to the family in the 1960s. Emma's mind raced. What if Thomas planted the manuscript? But why? Would he undermine his own conservative philosophy by revealing Schopenhauer's extremism? Unless, Michael suggested, he believes these views would find support in today's climate. Emma's phone chimed with a message from Sarah. "Turn on the news. Thomas Müller is giving a press conference about the manuscript." On her tablet, Emma watched as Thomas Müller addressed reporters. The manuscript, while disturbing to modern sensibilities, represents an uncomfortable truth about natural hierarchies that has been suppressed by contemporary academia. The Authentication Committee called an emergency session. Emma presented her findings about the manuscript's potential connection to the Müller family. Dr. Adelheid Schmidt, the committee chair, listened carefully. "This raises questions about chain of custody, but not necessarily authenticity." "I agree," Emma said. "The manuscript may be genuine, but its sudden appearance and the circumstances surrounding it suggest a deliberate attempt to influence current gender politics." Thomas Müller burst into the meeting, waving papers. "Enough speculation. I've submitted the manuscript for independent testing by the Friedrich Institute. Their preliminary findings confirm authenticity. The philosophical community must now reckon with Schopenhauer's complete vision." Emma stood her ground. "Even if authentic, the manuscript represents one man's prejudice, not philosophical truth." "History will decide," Thomas sneered. "Meanwhile, I've secured a publishing deal for the complete manuscript with commentary." After he stormed out, Dr. Schmidt looked troubled. "The Friedrich Institute has close ties to politically motivated groups. Their authentication can't be considered objective." Emma felt the walls closing in. The manuscript was becoming a cultural flashpoint, with truth as the first casualty. Michael touched her arm. "There's another approach. If we can't stop the manuscript, perhaps we can provide context through Schopenhauer's own contradictions." Emma spent the next week immersed in Schopenhauer's complete works, searching for inconsistencies between his published philosophy and the private manuscript. In her university office, surrounded by open books and digital archives, she began noting contradictions, places where Schopenhauer's published work showed more nuance than his private writings. Michael entered with coffee and news. Thomas Müller is scheduled to appear on 5 major talk shows next week. He's positioning himself as the defender of philosophical tradition against woke censorship. Emma barely looked up. "I found something interesting. In his published work on ethics, Schopenhauer acknowledges human compassion as universal, transcending gender. Yet in this manuscript he claims women are fundamentally incapable of true ethical reasoning. A contradiction that undermines his own philosophical system," Michael observed. "Exactly, and there's more. His aesthetic theory grants women appreciation of beauty, yet here he denies them any capacity for transcendent experience." Emma straightened. "The manuscript doesn't just reveal his misogyny, it exposes how his prejudice created fatal flaws in his philosophical system." Emma's analysis was taking shape, not denying the manuscript's authenticity, but using Schopenhauer's own logic to dismantle his misogyny. Her office phone rang. President Hoffman himself. "Dr. Reinhardt, the university is prepared to issue a statement acknowledging the manuscript while contextualizing its content. We'd like you to draft it. A small victory." Emma turned to Michael. "We focus on philosophical integrity. Even Schopenhauer would have to acknowledge these contradictions, invalidate his position." With the manuscript's publication date approaching, Emma organized a symposium featuring leading Schopenhauer scholars and historians of gender in philosophy. The university auditorium was packed. Security checked each attendee as threats against. The event had multiplied. Emma opened the proceedings. "We're here not to censor historical reality, but to understand it fully." Schopenhauer's views on women must be examined within his biographical context and the larger historical marginalization of women in philosophy. The first speaker, Dr. Helena Santos from the University of Lisbon, presented research on Schopenhauer's troubled relationships with his mother and female companions. His philosophical misogyny had deep psychological roots in personal resentment and failure, she concluded. Thomas Müller interrupted from the audience. This psychoanalysis is irrelevant. The manuscript presents philosophical arguments about women's nature, not personal grievances, Emma responded calmly. Philosophy doesn't exist in a vacuum, Professor Müller. Schopenhauer's personal experiences shaped his worldview, creating blind spots in his reasoning. The symposium continued, with scholars presenting evidence of women philosophers whose work was systematically erased from the philosophical canon, contemporaries of Schopenhauer whose writings challenged his views but were excluded from academic consideration. As tensions in the room escalated, Emma received a text from Sarah. Package delivered to your apartment. Sender unknown. Police advised. Emma felt a chill. The manuscript was no longer just an academic concern, but potentially a physical threat. The police found nothing dangerous in the package, just a slim folder containing photocopies of letters between Hans Müller and his son, Thomas's father. Dated 1962, Emma read them with Michael at her side, their significance gradually becoming clear. Hans Müller admits to altering Schopenhauer documents, she whispered. Listen to this. The philosopher's views required strengthening for modern application. I have made certain adjustments that enhance rather than distort his essential meaning. Michael's expression darkened. He's admitting to forgery, or at least manipulation of authentic documents. But why would someone send this to me? Emma wondered. The answer came in a subsequent email from an anonymous address. Not all Müllers agree with Thomas. Some of us believe in academic integrity. Armed with this new evidence, Emma and Michael returned to the authentication committee. Dr. Schmidt examined the letters carefully. This suggests the manuscript may be partially authentic, but modified to amplify certain views, she concluded. We'll need to conduct more sophisticated analysis to identify possible alterations. Thomas Müller, informed of this development, held an impromptu press conference denouncing the letters as fabrications and Emma as an academic fraud determined to suppress Schopenhauer's true views. The battle lines were drawn, not simply over a manuscript's authenticity, but over how philosophical history could be weaponized in modern gender debates. The Authentication Committee employed advanced spectroscopic analysis to examine the manuscript's ink composition. Their findings shocked everyone. Dr. Schmidt presented the results. The document contains two distinct ink formulations, one consistent with mid-19th century composition, another appearing to be a sophisticated, modern reproduction aged to appear historical. Emma leaned forward. So parts are authentic and parts are forgery. Precisely. Approximately 60% appears original to Schopenhauer's time. The remaining portions, notably those containing the most extreme statements about women's intellectual inferiority, show subtle chemical differences indicating later addition. This revelation divided the academic community. Some scholars insisted that even the authentic portions confirmed Schopenhauer's misogyny, while others emphasized the ethical breach represented by the forgery. Thomas Müller refused to acknowledge the findings, claiming ideological tampering with the results. That evening, Emma received a visit from an unexpected source. Thomas's niece, Julia Müller, a doctoral student in chemistry. I performed independent tests on sample scrappings. From the manuscript, Julia explained, placing a folder on Emma's desk. My results match the committee's. Furthermore, I found evidence in my grandfather's papers that he systematically altered philosophical texts to support his political views. Emma studied the young woman. Why are you doing this? It's your family legacy. Julia's expression hardened. because truth matters more than legacy, and because I'm tired of men like my uncle using distorted history to justify excluding women from philosophy. The university held a press conference announcing the authentication committee's findings. Emma stood beside Dr. Schmidt as cameras flashed. Our analysis confirms the manuscript contains both authentic material from Schopenhauer and later modifications, Dr. Schmidt explained. This case highlights the danger of accepting historical documents without rigorous verification, especially when they confirm contemporary biases. Emma added, Schopenhauer's published misogyny remains a historical fact, but this incident reveals how historical figures can be weaponized to serve modern agendas. Thomas Müller, now under university investigation, had been removed from his teaching duties pending review. The story spread globally, evolving from a philosophical controversy to a cautionary tale about historical manipulation. Academic journals published special issues examining the ethics of historical representation and gender in philosophical tradition. Emma found herself in demand as a speaker on academic integrity and the politics of philosophical history. In her apartment, surrounded by interview requests, she received a call from Sarah. "How does it feel to be vindicated?" her sister asked. Emma sighed. Not like victory. This was never about winning, but about protecting historical truth, including the ugly parts. Schopenhauer was indeed misogynistic, but his views didn't need amplification to be worthy of critical examination. "What happens now?" Sarah asked. "We build better safeguards against manipulation, and we continue expanding the philosophical canon to include the voices that were silenced." 1 year later, Emma stood before a packed lecture hall. Her course, Gender and Philosophical Authority Cautionary Histories, had become the department's most popular offering. "The Schopenhauer manuscript incident taught us several lessons," she told her students. "First, that our philosophical tradition contains genuine misogyny that must be confronted, not erased. Second, that this history can be manipulated to serve contemporary agendas. And third, that academic integrity requires constant vigilance." The manuscript itself now resided in the university's special collections, properly labeled to indicate both authentic and forged sections, available for scholarly study with appropriate context. Thomas Müller had resigned and moved abroad, still insisting on the manuscript's complete authenticity despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. After class, Michael joined Emma for their weekly coffee. "Your new book contract came through," he announced. "The publisher wants the manuscript by spring." Emma nodded. Her book, Truth and Authority, Gender Politics in Philosophical History, had attracted interest from major academic presses. "I've been thinking about Schopenhauer," she said. "His actual views were damaging enough without embellishment. The real tragedy is how long philosophy excluded women's voices that could have challenged him directly." "Which is why your work matters," Michael replied. "Not just exposing forgeries, but recovering those lost voices." As they walked across campus, Emma noticed a group of female students debating animatedly outside the philosophy department. "Your admirers?" Michael asked with a smile. "Future philosophers," Emma corrected, "unafraid to challenge any authority, including mine." She watched them, these young women claiming their place in a tradition that had long excluded them, and felt a profound sense of purpose. The battle over Schopenhauer's manuscript had never been just about historical accuracy, but about who had the right to shape philosophical discourse, past, present, and future. Truth had prevailed, not by concealing history's darkness, but by illuminating it fully, allowing new generations to build something better from understanding rather than ignorance.